Welcome to Eros Revolution, episode 3. It has been a minute. It's been a minute. Been working on other projects, other series, and we're back with Eros Revolution. I started an Eros Revolution podcast, but I haven't done this format in a while, and I'm really excited. I have a very specific topic to bring to you today, because this is what has been on Aubrey's mind for probably a couple of weeks now, which is the resurgence of Christianity in the West. Yes, this is what I contemplate in my spare time. But it's been on my mind a little bit as just an interesting thing that I've noticed happening. I've been seeing different statistics in various publications and things about attendance at Christ-based religious churches, Catholicism, all different kinds of Christianity. I've been seeing the statistics that say the attendance is going up, and Gen Z is, filling the church pews more than you might expect. And I just find that really interesting. A friend of mine, a really good friend of mine who I've known for probably over 10 years, I think, she and I will do like video chat or voice memos once in a while. Every month or so we'll catch up. And so we spent like 2.5 days sending each other these really amazing voice memos, updating each other about our lives. And we got into this deep conversation about Christianity because it's since the last time that she and I really connected, she is like fully Christian now. She had this actually incredibly beautiful experience where she hit a bottom in a certain way and was having a really hard time in herself and kind of, cried out, and she felt met by Jesus. Rewind a little bit. I grew up Christian, and, I'm erotic through and through. Like, I am here on the planet, my calling in life is to spread the good word of Eros. I make no secret of that, right? But I also grew up Christian, and I have a lot of respect for Christ. I, have the opportunity to talk with my dad a lot, who is still very Christian and, has like a actually beautiful relationship with Jesus. And we have these really cool conversations where I make it kind of a game to like find our common ground. There's a lot more common ground than you would think. I actually think Jesus was super erotic. I think that Jesus was a being or an energy or a man or whatever you want to think of it as, that opened up the dimension of unconditional love on the planet. And I think that working with Eros directly, like working with erotic energies directly and learning how to do that in an adult way, which I will get to that subject a little bit in a couple of minutes, but I have a lot to say on that. But working with erotic energies in an adult manner, skillfully, and actually doing the work to learn that, does the same thing. It also opens up a dimension of unconditional love on the planet. It opens up a dimension of unconditionality in a person that then can extend into everything they do in life. And this path that I'm on and this philosophy that I believe in and talk about all the time and am so passionate about, and these Eros sutras that I'm such a nerd for and everything, and all of Nicole Daedon's body of work and all of that. These are source code descriptions of the fundamental mechanics of how to open that dimension of unconditionality. And so back to my friend, as she's telling me about this transformative experience she had with Jesus, I'm feeling my body and my whole being just light up with her transformation. And I was crying a little bit. Like, it was so meaningful for her, and she was transmitting that to me, and I was so touched by it, and it was like this incontrovertibly real thing that she had felt, and she was resolving all of these kind of pieces of identity that she had struggled with, that she had trouble figuring out how to work with until she had this transformation. And then she was like, it's like all these different things are just beginning to resolve on their own, and it's really beautiful how it's coming about. And she went into all of this description. And so I had this realization about identity while she was talking too. And I was thinking, one of the things that's happening in the world so much right now, or I mean, especially in the West, is an obsession with identity to the degree that there's all these identities that people put before you would ever even approach their essence. And then it can be clunky and heavy and painful to carry around all of those. And then anybody you interact with then has to make it through the labyrinth of all of those before they would experience you outside of those identities or roles or ideas about who you are. You're this way, or you like things that way, or you like this kind of person or whatever, before they would touch your essence and before you would touch theirs. And so there's like a loneliness. And I think that one of the reasons there's a resurgence in Christianity right now is, well, one, I think people are dying for a sense of meaning and purpose. And there's like a real lack of that for a lot of people right now. And I think you can be lonely, you can be hungry, you can be devastated, heartbroken, you can have deep pain about a lot of things in life and survive all of it. You cannot survive a lack of meaning. That is a death sentence. Like, it's an ache that no one can live with for long. And then the other really big reason I think there's a resurgence is because of this thing I mentioned, identity. And so I think that I honestly think people are getting sick and tired of carrying around all of these identities that are having them not be able to directly experience life intimately, which is what gives life meaning too. And so it all really relates. But there's a thing that happens for people, and this is something my friend described really beautifully, where in their experience in Christianity and in connection with this, Christ, this Christ energy, right? This Christ, I would call it like Christ consciousness. They're having a dissolution of all of these identities where their main identity is like a daughter or a son of God, which really is like where you just are free to be your essential self, like who you are at the deepest, most basic level. And you get to have all of these other identities, like who you are to other people in your life, like who you're attracted to, who you are politically. These are fun things to play with when you're free inside and you feel connected to your essential being, and that's mostly where you're coming from in life. And they're not as fun and feel very heavy and like these things you have to carry around if you're not free in those places. And I think most people are not free in those places, and it's heavy. These are heavy identities and roles to have to wear all the time, and it's what everybody's kind of leading with right now. And then running into each other like horrible bumper cars, some sort of bizarre like bumper car experience, and we're just running into each other with their identities. And there was this like gorgeous transmission that my friend gave me of having a bunch of different identity things in her that she had always, kind of struggled with or worked with or been tortured by at different times in her life and stuff, trying to resolve that, were like dissolving and resolving in this relationship that she was building with Jesus. And I thought that was incredibly beautiful. And I thought, oh, well, that's definitely why there's a resurgence of Christianity in the West, because people want that dissolution. And that's another place that's an incredibly common ground with Eros. Like, that is the same thing, in Eros, in the practice that goes hand in hand with Eros, orgasmic meditation. That is the place that you go to in that practice. That's the place where that's like the mystical state or the state of orgasm, or the place where your mind quiets completely and you just inhabit your body, and there's no static and noise and, like kind of the insanity of the day, and you just get to be and feel. And with repeated practice, you get more and more access to that place, and you can kind of come from that place in your everyday life more and more. And so same, Christ, Eros, same. And then this one is the one that I feel like people would be surprised by, this last common ground piece, which leads into my piece that I promised to talk about earlier, adulthood around working with erotic energies. The number one most important thing that humanity should be focused on right now in the entire world. I know that there are countless other things vying for our attention and very loud things that need lots of solutions and all of these problems that are yelling in our faces. But honestly, this is why I do the work that I do. This is why I am an erotic person in the world, and a source of that energy is because I believe and feel and see everywhere that a wacky, bizarre, divorced relationship with Eros is the root of the issue. And so I'm in my work, I'm trying to address that at the root of the root. But this common ground piece between Eros and Christianity that I think people might be surprised by is actually that this philosophy of Eros and Christianity both take erotic energies very seriously. Very seriously. They actually understand the nuclear power of erotic energies. They actually understand that they do need a certain amount of attention and harnessing and deliberately working with them, and that not doing that leads to, at best, just misusing them when they could be really useful, and at worst, explosive violence, all different kinds of porn addiction, all of that stuff. So both Christianity and Eros actually have like a really deep respect for erotic energies. And what happens with Christianity, though, and this is what has happened throughout history, and this is what I think we should do differently this time in this resurgence. And this is what I have hope for, that we could do differently this time in this resurgence, which is to acknowledge that these energies exist. They're not going anywhere. They are what gives life meaning and color and life. Like, they are the life that gives life. Like, that is the blood flow that we live in when there is joy in life. It is the energy of Eros freely pouring through a moment. And it's not always sexual, but it does have to do with having an adult relationship with sexuality. Like, that is part of it, but you can't get out of that part. And so what I should say, like, there's a difference between relating with Christ's energy and then the religions that get formed around this beautiful relationship. The religions can also be really beautiful, but they can also end up being entirely built on restraining and suppressing and trying to cut off Eros completely. And that's really how they've related with Eros throughout history. And this is how you get, like, the Crusades and like the Catholic Church witch hunting and stuff like that. Like, this is a violent effort to, cut Eros off at the knees in its various expressions through women, like limiting people's access to the early forms of the Eucharist, which were psychedelic, like in nature, things like that, right? So there's a lot of different ways that the various churches have tried to cut off, suppress, restrain, get rid of these erotic energies instead of learning how to have an adult relationship with them. And so I actually love that there's a resurgence of Christianity. The potential of that being something that could provide people access to contact with a deeper force that provides them meaning and purpose and a dissolution of identity in like a really relieving way and a healing way is amazing. And I love that. And I think we should do it differently this time. I think this could be like the destiny of humanity to finally have arrived to a place where we can collectively begin to acknowledge, like, we're not getting out of relating with these energies. How do we do it as adults? How do we learn the skills of it, the mechanics of relating with these energies? How do we use them well to reach higher states of consciousness? How do we use them for mystical access? How do we befriend them and learn how to let them move through us and trust them and like build that relationship with them where there is trust in that relationship, and it doesn't just feel like this huge force throwing you around and you don't know what to do with it, so you just slam it down, So I have a lot of hope for that, and feel like we could actually hit that mark for the first time in history on this round. This was Eros Revolution, episode 3, a special edition in collaboration with the Eros platform Instagram. I and many other people are discussing things like this and all kinds of different really cool subjects on the erosplatform.com. So definitely come and check us out there. It is awesome.